Hello and welcome back to the American Ultra Stock channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today we're bringing on a video where you see Braden's rapping right there, Paxton Aronson's former club, Vitesse, McGlynn, and Aronson's jersey as well at Frankfurt, because he's going to be involved, like a lot of our talent, in the Olympics, which can be perhaps a silver lining for our summer after a very disappointing Copa America. We have the U23s heading out to Paris, hopefully trying to bring us a medal. Straight to the point, after the roster has been released, we already gave an extensive analysis on that. We're going to be predicting now the starting lineup with what we have at our disposal, keeping in mind we had a few with snubs here and there. Who do you think will be filled out as the starting 11 come the debut against France, Braden?
Yeah, well, the first thing that I just want to preface is that there's only 18 players at this tournament, and the games are all so close together. Every single player on the roster is going to have to play a pretty big role for the team, so the starting lineup isn't going to be consistent like we saw in Copa America. There's going to be a lot of rotation every game, kind of like we're going to see at the U20 tournament, which we're also covering and is going on right now. But I think if we were to play in a final, we'll say the first choice starting lineup, and probably against France in the opener as well. I think in goal it's going to be Patrick Schulte. He's been the number one the whole cycle. He was given the number one for the squad numbers, so I think that indicates pretty clearly that he will be the first choice starter. Now I expect Sonina to play a little bit. He'll probably get at least one game in the group, but ultimately it's going to be Schulte for most of it. At right back, it's going to be Nathan Harriel. He's the only true right back on the roster. The only other ones who even have experience playing there is probably Taylor Booth, and that goes back to his youth days at Bayern. So it's basically a Harriel or nothing, for better or for worse. He was given the number 2 as well. He's going to be at right back. For left back, it's been between Tolkien and Wiley the whole process, but Tolkien's been the preferred starter. Wiley also can fill in on the wing if needed. I think it's going to be John Tolkien to be the starter at left back. Again, if you look at the squad numbers, not reading too much into it, but he was given the number 5. Seems to be the first choice left back for Marko Mitrovic. And then at center backs, very straightforward. Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman, 2 overage defenders. Max Dietz will probably get some game time as a backup option, but it's going to be the 2 overage players. You don't bring overage players to this tournament to not start them. So it's going to be those 2, and it's a pretty experienced defense partnership there. So hopefully they should do as well as possible to contain our opponent's attackers. And into the midfield, I think it's also pretty straightforward. Tanner Tessman and Gianluca Busio have been the 2 locked-in starters this whole process, especially Tessman. He's been the captain the whole cycle. Now Zimmerman might take that away from him just because he was brought in as an overage player. But regardless, Tessman's going to be crucial. The only true 6 on the team, so he's going to be huge in that role. I mean, he's basically irreplaceable, especially since Aiden Morris isn't on the roster. He wasn't released. So it's going to be Tessman next to his former, probably club partner, Gianluca Busio, since Tessman probably will be getting a transfer this summer. But they have the chemistry of Venezia for several seasons. They were so crucial to helping them get promoted to Serie A this past year, and they've been locked in together for club and for country this entire process. I expect them to be next to each other. And alongside them, the third and final overage player, unfortunately, it's going to be Georgi Mihailovic to start. We all know that Diego Luna should have been here instead, but we can't dwell on that in the past. Like I said about the center backs, we're not going to bring an overage player to this tournament to not start them. Georgie is going to be one of the most crucial players on this roster. He's going to be the one at the 10 tasked with creating chances. So hopefully he can do that. I think he has the quality at this level. It's just a matter of can he do it or not. And hopefully he can. At the Gold Cup, he struggled a little bit against maybe a worse quality teams, but he's been good in MLS this season. We're going to have to trust him. And then for the forwards, I think Duncan McGuire speaks for itself. He's the only true striker on the roster. He will start. He did also score our only goal against Paraguay in a closed doors friendly leading up to this. So that's a sign for encouragement because he hasn't been too great the whole process. Getting him on the score sheet is much needed ahead of the tournament. And then for the wingers, I think if you're looking at the best wingers, we'd probably start Griffin Yao and Kevin Paredes, but there's basically 4 wingers on this roster. 2 of each kind. There's Yao and Paredes, who are more of a quicker traditional winger. And then there's Taylor Booth and Paxton, who are both more traditionally number 10s that shift out wide. I think there's going to be one of Yao and Paredes on the left, and then one of Paxton and Booth on the right. So we have both kinds of winger. It doesn't make sense to start the same kind of winger on both sides. So I think it will be Yao and Booth, just based on their performances and how crucial they've been to the team. But if it's Paredes, if it's Paxton, if it's any combination of those 4, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, on that, I would just say that I would actually bench Mihailovic. I know some people might look at him and think that, well, that's a good bit of experience for what, really? What experience has he had, really? I would actually start Paxton in the midfield role. He has played there for Vitesse. I think that he, again, the work rate that the Aronson brothers have, and I think that on the ball, he's a better player than Mihailovic, too. So I don't really understand the Mihailovic one. As we said when covered already, I would actually start as well on the wings, Yao and Paredes, and I think we're stuck with Maguire. Really, there's not much really to change there. He's the only number 9, really de facto, unless we try to play with Paxton as a false 9, which happened, and that's what ultimately led us to qualify for the tournament. But we're here, and that's probably what's going to be filled it out. Maguire at the 9, and are you confident? Coming into the tournament time that we can have a good run. Let's see right here in the group stage. Do you predict us to get 7 points, 9 points, 3 or 4? Are we going to underwhelm? I'm quite confident that Thierry Henry is a bad enough coach to help us get the first spot. And after that, we have a bit of a, could be a favorable or very unfavorable run. Braden, run us down through what our path can look like.
Well, I think let's just talk about the group stage before we get into the knockouts. We have France as the opener, the hosts, probably the favorites to win the whole tournament. Like you said, Thierry Henry, not the best manager, but their talent is just so next level. It's on a different planet compared to all the other teams of this tournament. Even the overage players that they brought, especially Lacazette and Mateta up top, are just so much better than anybody else of this tournament. Elise, of course, is going to be a star man. I mean, if you could name every single player on their roster, and they'd probably start for everyone in this tournament. So it's going to be really tough. We did draw them in the run up to this tournament. We drew them in France, which was encouraging. I just think come tournament time, it's going to be different. I unfortunately foresee a loss in our first group stage game. I think they're going to want to set the tone, get off to a good start in the tournament. They also have a little something extra to prove since they did ultimately come up short at the Euros. It's a different team, but still representing the same country. I think they're going to be extra determined to win gold and do their country proud at the Olympics, the biggest sporting competition in the world outside the World Cup, and doing it at home in front of their fans. I think they're going to beat us in the first game. Then we have New Zealand and Tyler Bendon, one of my favorite players, American dual national. Unfortunately for him, the rest of the team just isn't up to par. I think they're the worst team in this group by a long shot, and we should have no problems with them, even if we field a rotated team, which I expect to happen, because the final group game against Guinea, I think, will be what decides if we make it out of the group stage or not. We did beat them 3-0 earlier in the cycle, but it does have to be said, their team back then was a lot worse than their team is now. They brought in some better players, both in the age eligible category and the overage players. Of course, Naby Keita, former Liverpool midfielder, very experienced for their senior national team, will be here as their leader. They're a very solid side, and I could honestly see them upsetting us, but I do think we will get out of the group in second place. Yuri, do you agree?
I actually think that, well, we are also going to get second, but I'm a little bit hopeful that we can somehow pull first. It wouldn't be the biggest surprise. I think that it should be a very comfortable win against Guinea and New Zealand. I don't think we're going to have any issues there. But then again, getting first in this group, it's a little, some people may look at it and think it's hard because we could go up against Argentina right away. So it is extremely important. And I think that the encouraging signs that we saw in the first game, yeah, France is going to be playing better with better players, but it's basically the same roster. And I think that we will, on the other hand, look a lot better with the players we have at our disposal. That day, it has to be said, Tompkinson and Ada Morris were a huge part on why we fell back to 0. On the second half, we made some changes and looked a lot better, and both of those players are not going to be around this time, so maybe there's room for encouragement there for us as well. So heading on, you have us in second, I also have us in second. Does our path look like? Do you think there is any hope really that we can have a deep run here?
It's a very interesting and dynamic path, I would say, because especially at the Olympics when you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, we've seen in some of the friendlies that some of the teams have had leading up to the tournament, even in the past several days, the closed doors ones, it's so unpredictable at this level. Anyone can surprise. So I think there's an equal chance that we could make a run to the final, but also maybe get knocked out in the group stage or the quarterfinals. So speaking of the quarterfinals, we would play, you mentioned Argentina as a possible option. We both have our team finishing second in Group A, which means we would play first from Group B, which, like I said, like you said, probably will be Argentina. I wouldn't sleep on Morocco though. I think they have a solid chance at surprising some people. I think they're a lot better than people give them credit for. They're just a very well run organization now. Especially we saw in the 2022 World Cup, their run to the semifinals, and I think their youth team here is very strong as well. Of course, bringing Akraf Hakimi as one of the overage players, probably their best player on the senior national team level, one of the best defenders in the world. So they're going to be no pushover. But Argentina with Julian Alvarez, Thiago Almada, Claudio Echeverri, the wonder kid from the Argentine league, I think ultimately they will finish first. I will say though, I'll be a little bit pessimistic. I do not fancy our chances against either of those two teams. It's not to say that we can't win. Like I said, it's very unpredictable. I think we have a solid chance at beating either of them. If I were to bet my house on it, I'd probably say we lose. But we'll just say hypothetically that we win. Onto the semifinals, we would play first place from Group D or second from Group C, which I think is a blessing in disguise that we end up finishing second, because Spain would then be on the other side. And I think Spain behind France are probably the second favorite to win this tournament. And getting to avoid both of those nations until the final, I think is very valuable. We'd probably play Japan. They would, I think, in my predictions, they would top Group D, beat whoever finishes second in Group C, whether it's Egypt, Uzbekistan, Dominican Republic. I think they'd beat them pretty comfortably. Japan are a very solid side. We saw that when we played them in March, losing 2-0 behind closed doors and then losing 2-0 again on television. So again, I don't think we'd be the favorites. I do actually think we'd have a better chance at winning this game, funnily enough, than beating Argentina or Morocco in the quarterfinals. So if we did do that in the final, we'd probably come up against France or Spain. The run ends there. If we, by some miracle, make it to the final, we're not beating France at home in a final. We're not beating Spain, the quality that they have, bringing some of their players from the Euros roster as well as some very, very talented youngsters. I don't think we'd beat either of them, but a run to the final is certainly possible. How far do you have us going?
Well, on that, I would just say we did have a friendly against Spain, and we won on penalties. So if that counts for anything, Booth got the goal, so that's an encouraging sign too. And they filled it out a very strong starting 11. So it's really unpredictable. And I think that against Morocco, who I think will actually finish first on Group B, I just don't. It's just Argentina's DNA really. They don't really have this strongest starts to tournaments historically, and I think that that would actually be a blessing in disguise, because against Argentina, just the weight of the jersey, I think we would end up losing against them. But against Morocco, I actually think we have a good chance of going through. If we play against Japan, that's a very tough game. Very tough game, in my opinion. That's probably where the run ends, and I would have us playing on the third place game, actually. But even though I think, again, we should have the chance to go toe-to-toe, honestly, it's worth a medal of chance to go to the finals. So, well, you never know. But I think that realistically, if I had to bet everything, I would put us on a third place knockout game, and then we'll see what happens. So ultimately, after reading all these scenarios, all the players that we've already covered, do you think we have enough to get a medal? Do you predict us to do so? And which medal is it, Braden?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, seriously one of the hardest things there is to predict. I think my answer to the question changes every day. If we recorded this tomorrow or yesterday, my answer might be very different. I think I'm going to end up saying no medal. Quarterfinals exit. I just think whoever we come up against, whether it's Argentina, Julian Alvarez is going to absolutely destroy, send into retirement our two center backs. It's not going to be pretty for Walker and Miles. They're going to show why they never moved abroad, why they stayed in MLS. And if we come up against Morocco, I love Nathan Harriel as a Union fan, but him against Ez Abdi or Ilyas Akamak on the wing, it's over. He can't compare with those types of players. Obviously, it's more than just one positional battle, but I think overall, and especially losing to Amir Richardson, the American dual nat that snubbed us for Morocco, that would sting. But I do think we're going to end up losing. I couldn't tell you who it's going to be between Argentina and Morocco. There is still the chance that we could top our group. Who knows? But we're going to play one of those two teams in the quarters, barring a miracle run from one of the other teams in Group B. I just don't like our chances to beat either of those teams. Having said that, if we do make it out of that, I think we beat Japan or whoever it ends up being in the semifinals, make a run to the final, and ultimately get the silver medal.
All right, if we make the final, I'll just say we get gold somehow. It would be nice, but I don't think that will really happen. If I had to bet everything, I think we get a bronze medal. I think that we would be fairly, even though that third place game could be very tough against either France or Spain. But I predict us to get a bronze medal there. I'm very hopeful that we're going to do well in our group. I trust these guys. I think that, yeah, there were a few snubs here and there, but judging by what Mitrovic is trying to do, I think it's a side that typically plays very cohesively, does really well against France. I think that's the best sample we've had, and where it was mid-season and everyone was up and firing, and we did ourselves proud in that game to come back. So I think that now with the addition of Booth and more experienced center backs, because frankly Tompkinson was again disastrous in that game, I think we should have enough to have a good run. Let's be hopeful here. I'd like to ask the subscribers, what do you guys think will happen? Do you think we can get a medal? Again, I'm betting everything that we can get some type of medal, even if a bronze. I think it's maybe I'm being deluded, but let's be hopeful these guys can be the silver lining to what has been a very gloom summer so far. So please let us know in the comments below who you think will, oh, before we go, actually, Braden, let's just say, who do you think is going to be the best player from our squad and our top goal scorer? Any types of players right here? Because this is something you guys always ask in the comments. Who can come up to the A team? Who do you think comes out with a breakthrough tournament at the end of it?
Well, I will just say, after the tournament's done, sometime soon after that, we will have a video coming out, a tier list. Every single player on this roster, their 18 potential. So stay tuned for that. I think it's going to be an excellent video. I can't wait to make it personally. But if I were to pick our most important player, or who I think is going to be the best, I'm going to go for your boy, Tanner Tessman from Venezia. Like I said when I talked about the starting lineup, he's the only true six here, and we've seen at the senior national team level, if we don't have a true six, we capitulate. So he's going to be absolutely key to holding the midfield together, especially since we will probably be playing with a 10. Georgie will probably be committed a little bit higher up the pitch, and it's going to be Busio partnering Tessman. He's not the most defensive of midfielders. I think if you were to pick, he's more of an attacking center mid than a defensive center mid. So Tessman's going to be largely on his own for the most part, which he wouldn't have been if Aidan Morris was here. But he's going to have a large responsibility, and I think ultimately his performances are going to make or break this tournament for us. Luckily, he's one of our best players on the roster, has 18 potential. I have full faith in him. I think if he has a bad tournament, we're probably screwed. And then for the Golden Boot, it's a little tough to say because I feel like all of our wingers are going to be rotated out so much. I'm going to give faith in him. I don't rate him too highly, and I don't think he should be on the roster in the first place. But I'm going to give faith to Georgi Mihailovic. I think he'll be our top scorer here, do us proud, do Marko Mitrovic proud, and repay the faith that he put in him by selecting him as an overage player, just because I don't really trust Duncan Maguire, our only striker, to score too many goals at this level. Our wingers, like I said, there's going to be a lot of rotation. I think we could see 3 or 4 of our wingers all getting on the score sheet, getting assists. Ultimately, I'm going to pick Mihailovic.
Nice. Yeah, for a breakthrough, again, I back Tessman fully. I've been high on him ever since he was a bench player at Venezia, battling to go to Serie C. So he's earned a move to a bigger place, and I think he will earn himself at least to be in contention for a next senior team call-up after this tournament. But the guy that I think will really shine and have the best stats is Griffin Yao. I think he's just really direct, really explosive, silky player, and not many people really know about him. So that helps as well. He's not going to have a target on his back as I think Paredes will. So those are my predictions. Let us know in the comments below if you think you agree with us, if you believe that we can get a run to the medal. It would be nice. And let us know as well any players that you would like us to talk about from other teams, as we have been planning a video to talk about potential prospects to watch out in the Olympics. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you next time.